All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur and Experiment with you guys. So we got the news of the day, of course, and guys, also remember to check us out whenever there's any kind of news event. So when Ron DeSantis dropped out over the weekend, I did a video about that from the airport. We're gonna give you, as I promised you in that video, a lot more details here. And then tonight I'm covering the California debate between Barbara Lee, Katie Porter, and Adam Schiff for the Senate seat, so that's going to be interesting. So right after that's over, come to youtube.com/theyoungturks and check out my live video on it. All right, Anna.
Well, as promised, we're gonna dig a little deeper into Ron DeSantis' decision to drop out of the race. So without further ado, let's get right to it.
Following our second place finish in Iowa, we've prayed and deliberated on the way forward. If there was anything I could do to produce a favorable outcome, more campaign stops, more interviews, I would do it. But I can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will remain just that, a governor. He announced that he is in fact dropping out of the Republican presidential primary, and he did so by posting the message on social media, X to be specific. So let's take a look at that post where he quotes Winston Churchill, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." The only problem is that wasn't actually a quote from Winston Churchill. A little bit of a side note here, a little bit of a tangent, Cenk. It was from a Budweiser ad from 1938.
Okay, so I hope it wasn't from a Bud Light ad. That would be really problematic. And second, I don't think that's the only problem though. There's a second problem. The courage to continue that counts as he's ending his campaign.
Right.
This is like Trump's never surrender shirt, where he had the mugshot of him surrendering to authorities. Also, Ron DeSantis' PAC was called Never Back Down.
Okay, but look, I think he did the right thing. I didn't see a path forward for Ron DeSantis in this primary. He was flailing, his campaign wasn't doing so well. Nikki Haley is experiencing a surge, which is precisely the reason why Donald Trump has directed his ire toward her now. And we've got a lot to talk about in that regard later on in the show. But he did what he needed to do. It just don't, include your dropout message with, courage to continue that counts, because you're not continuing, you're dropping out of the race. That's the right thing to do.
You're literally doing the exact opposite.
Yeah.
You're dropping out and saying, I am no longer continuing. Words have no meaning anymore, but I agree with Anna. He was gonna get humiliated in New Hampshire. So that's why he started canceling interviews and panicking, etc. You don't wanna come in at 4% or something. That's, so that's why he got the hell out. He's trying to preserve his chances for a later run or a cabinet position, etc.
Exactly. So just to give you some of the digging that Midas Touch did in order to figure out where that quote was actually from. It wasn't from Winston Churchill. It was actually from a Budweiser ad in 1938. Let's take a look at the ad that they found. So the copy of the 1938 ad reads as follows: "Men with the spirit of youth pioneered our America. Men with the vision and sturdy confidence. They found contentment in the thrill of action, knowing that success was never final and failure never fatal. It was courage that counted. Isn't opportunity in America today greater than it was in the days of our grateful forefathers?" Anyway, whatever. Let's get back to DeSantis. I don't know why he decided to use that quote, but nonetheless.
It's not a bad quote, it just doesn't make any sense in this context, and Churchill didn't say it,
right,
that's all.
Exactly. So he did make an endorsement in his announcement video. So let's take a quick look at that and then we'll discuss the reactions to it.
Well, I've had disagreements with Donald Trump, such as on the coronavirus pandemic and his elevation of Anthony Fauci. Trump is superior to the current incumbent, Joe Biden. That is clear. I signed a pledge to support the Republican nominee, and I will honor that pledge. He has my endorsement because we can't go back to the old Republican guard of yesteryear.
And Trump thanked him the only way Donald Trump knows how.
Okay, he just said, will I be using the name Ron DeSanctimonious? I said, that name is officially retired.
Now, Trump did mildly dunk on DeSantis one more time following DeSantis' announcement. Let's take a look at that.
But I was disappointed when they asked him whether or not he'd run, and he said, I have no comment. Because to me, when you say no comment, that means you're running. And we took it, I think I took it quite seriously. And it doesn't matter now because he got out.
Is there a possible of the joining of forces?
Well, it's probably unlikely, but I have to be honest, everything's a possibility, but I think it's highly unlikely. I have a lot of great people, and I have great people that have been with me right from the beginning.
Highly unlikely. I would be shocked if Donald Trump chose Ron DeSantis for a cabinet position. I could be wrong. I guess we'll wait and see what happens. But harder dunking actually came from the Miami Herald. Their editorial board obviously decided to comment on DeSantis' decision to step down from this race. And they write, it's not just that he was steamrolled by Donald Trump. DeSantis never appeared to want to save the GOP. He was more interested in making it a more ravenous, angrier, and intolerant party. That worked for Trump, but didn't work for the governor with all the charisma of burned toast. The newspaper also said that DeSantis could have made a play for, like a more reasonable Republican, a moderate Republican. Instead, he banked on exploiting divisions in our country. As he bows out, DeSantis leaves the Republican Party exactly as he found it, under Trump's dominance. And so I really do think that his supporters are going to rally behind Donald Trump, because just think about how DeSantis ran his campaign. He really positioned himself much like Ramaswamy as like Trump light. And why would anyone vote for Trump light when they can just vote for Trump? So those who bought into the DeSantis message, those who rallied behind him, in my opinion, are likely going to consolidate their support behind Donald Trump.
Yeah, so first, a little bit of credit to Donald Trump, which doesn't happen often from me on this show. He's transactional in a way that is, and it might be the first time I've ever used this word in regards to Donald Trump, logical. Because he'll beat the crap out of anyone who opposes him. And if you're playing hardball politics, that is rational. That's what you should do. Democrats say, don't ever attack your opponents. That's nonsense. That's insanity. Politics is all about uplifting your message and attacking your opponents. So he is right about that. When he pulverized Ron DeSantis, that's logical. And then, but as soon as they get down on their hands and knees and start polishing his boots, he goes back to, you're okay, you're back in, okay? So now Ron DeSanctimonious is retired as a name.
You gotta say it correctly. Retired.
Retired. Ron DeSantis. So cabinet or not, it doesn't matter. As long as Ron's a good boy going forward, he'll get pats on the head.
Oh, he'll be a good boy.
And so Donald Trump has done this hundreds of times with people like Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham says terrible things. He slaps him around a little bit. Lindsey Graham gets on his hands and knees and he goes, good boy, good boy. And every once in a while he'll say something demeaning about him, just so everybody knows who's the boss, right?
God. Yes, you're right.
But so Ron DeSantis has that to look forward to. Hope your tongue is ready for how often you're gonna have to use it on Donald Trump's boots. So that's the future he has to look forward to. That sounds amazing. Now, I thought that, but I'm not a hypocrite, and I don't want to play Monday morning quarterback. And hindsight's 2020. I thought Ron DeSantis should run, and so
same, yes,
yeah,
yep.
And I thought he was going to use the strategy of Donald Trump's a loser, because remember at that time they had just gotten much worse results in the 2022 elections than they had expected, the Republicans. And it was because Donald Trump had picked a bunch of lunatics to run in races and they all lost, right? So you could have concentrated on, listen, whether you like Donald Trump or not, all he does is lead to electoral losses. He lost to Joe Biden, come on, right? But DeSantis didn't do that, which would have been the logical and smart thing to do.
He flirted with that in the beginning, but
he ran away from it right away for two reasons. One is something that no one's talking about, I'm gonna get to in a sec. But the first one was just that he didn't pick a lane. He wanted to have his MAGA cake and eat it too, right? So he wanted to be able to say, Donald Trump is the greatest guy on earth, but I'm a little younger, I'm a little this, I'm a little that. And whereas Nikki Haley picked a lane. She's like, I'm the establishment Republican. I'll do whatever the corporate donors want. donors come to me, I'll pleasure you all day long, and I mean, politically, etc., and financially, eventually, if she wins. And so she picked a lane, and so that was logical. So now you got the two people in the two lanes, the populist MAGA lane and the establishment Republican lane, and DeSantis got caught in the middle of the road and run over. But the part no one's talking about is how much Joe Biden helped Donald Trump defeat Ron DeSantis. Why? Because the best argument that anybody could make against Trump is he's a natural born loser. He lost to Joe Biden, which could resonate with Republicans. Like, yeah, how did he lose to Joe Biden? That's unbelievable. He's lost all these races that he endorsed in, etc. But the problem is you can't make that argument when he's beating Joe Biden. And right now, the new poll came out today. He's beating him by 5 points. So Joe Biden, by being such a pathetically weak candidate, cost the other Republicans an ability to beat Trump in the primary by taking away their number one argument, which is that Trump can't win because Trump's in the middle of winning right now.
Yeah, that is a good point. I think there are other factors as well. I mean, everyone was pretty much obsessed with the lack of charisma that we saw from DeSantis on the campaign trail, his social awkwardness, his performance on the debate stage where he seemed physically uncomfortable, grinding his teeth, blinking his eyes, licking his lips. It was very strange. And again, I can't emphasize this enough, and we have the same critique of Democrats who try to run as Republican light in various districts and lose to the Republican candidate. In the case of Ron DeSantis, you're not gonna out MAGA the founder of MAGA. Right, so he did pick a lane, and it was a bad lane because if you're gonna try to mimic Donald Trump, you're gonna fail. And so not only did Nikki Haley pick a lane, I think she picked a lane that really did differentiate herself from Donald Trump. But ultimately, I don't think that it's gonna bode well for Nikki Haley either. Yes, she's providing an alternative to the MAGA version of the Republican Party, but I do feel that the Republican voting base has kind of moved on from the traditional conservative Republican.
Yeah, look, Anna, that's always what we've thought.
Yeah.
And so Trump is very likely to win. And when he does, though, we're gonna get clarity. So I don't wanna hear any nonsense from stupid ass pundits and stupid ass Democrats going around saying, oh no, the Republicans, they're gonna wake up one day. This is what Biden says all the time. And Pelosi says, they're gonna wake up one day and they're gonna go back to being super reasonable moderates. No, they're not. Or maybe they are. It's now or never, though. Because if they don't go in Nikki Haley's direction, it's over. They're MAGA populists to the end, right? And so, but having said all that, the only way to win was Nikki Haley's path. So the other path of trying to be Trump light is dumb. Anna, you nailed it. That's a perfect analogy is Democrats trying to be Republican light. It never works, never. So the only shot is Nikki Haley, and she'll probably lose because, yeah, the Republican Party is about 93% MAGA.
Well, there's some other election-related news to get to. This involves someone else who had already dropped out of the Republican primary. Without further ado, let's get to it.
Senator, I want to play something that you said when you launched your own presidential campaign in May.
Sure. Victimhood or victory? Grievance or greatness?
Senator, you ran a very positive, very hopeful campaign, but victimhood and grievance that you were describing in your launch speech that we played some of right there, sounds like Donald Trump. Did you change your mind?
Senator Tim Scott, who fairly recently decided to drop out of the GOP presidential primary, has now finally decided to endorse Donald Trump. In fact, he did so during a Trump rally in New Hampshire last Friday. Now, initially, Scott, who again dropped out in November, refused to back another candidate. Obviously, he has since changed his mind. Scott told Fox News's Trey Gowdy at the time that he would not back another Republican candidate, saying he believed the best way for me to be helpful was to withhold an endorsement in the primary. Scott also said he had no intention of accepting a vice presidential nomination, reaffirming a position he had repeated frequently on the campaign trail. But obviously that has changed, and as fellow South Carolinian Nikki Haley started to basically gain traction and experience a rise in the primary polling, he decided maybe I need to step in ahead of the New Hampshire primary, which is gonna take place this week on Tuesday. He even went as far as basically forgetting the foundation of his campaign and how it was at odds with Donald Trump's. And instead he focused on the faults of Joe Biden during this cable news interview. So let's take a look at how that went down.
We absolutely, positively, unequivocally need an America that's not filled with victims. I'm actually talking about how Joe Biden has destroyed our economy and made victims out of people waiting for the government to show up.
You did say on Friday, Senator, is that when you endorse Donald Trump, is that he will, quote, restore law and order, which is some of what you're talking about here this morning. As president, yes. He did try to overturn a legitimate election. He called January 6 rioters hostages and promised to pardon them. He is charged with keeping classified documents and obstructing attempts to get them back. And on the campaign now, he's arguing that presidents should have total immunity even if they, quote, cross the line. How is that law and order?
But what I can tell you is that when you look around the cities, when you grow up in poor communities like I did, and you watch the crime ravishing your communities, you ask yourself, what president has allowed that to happen? It's Joe Biden. When you have DAs around the country that says it's no longer a crime to steal $1,000 worth of goods, and those stores start closing in San Francisco and across the country, you ask yourself, what president allowed that lawless behavior to continue? That's Joe Biden.
Now, I really wish Dana Bash followed up with Scott's claims that we got to move away from victimhood by asking about Trump constantly putting himself in the position of a victim. Oh, this is unfair. It's a witch hunt. Yes, I broke the law, but they're coming after me because it's a witch hunt. But no, she moved on and allowed him to go on with this nonsense about Joe Biden allegedly being in favor of soft on crime policies, which, listen, I have all sorts of issues with Joe Biden and his leadership, but I cannot latch that. I can't claim to criticize him with what Scott just criticized him with. Like, Biden's actually been very much against the whole defund the police, soft on crime stuff that's been going on in some of these Democratic states and Democratic cities. So you got to find something a little better to attack him with. But anyway, Cenk, curious what you thought about his statements there.
Yeah, so I thought Dana Bash did a really good job here. And you've seen us give her credit, you've seen her criticize her depending on the situation. But here, she kept asking great questions and he had no answers because there are no answers. So he's like, I'm against victimhood. There's no bigger crybaby victim in the country than Donald Trump. And if you're MAGA and you deny that, you don't even believe that. You know he's a crybaby. You just say anything about him, right?
He uses his rallies. I mean, look, he uses his rallies to air his grievances.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Like, that's all he does during his rallies these days.
Yeah, Festivus was made for Donald Trump, okay? All he does is air grievances. So the world's biggest victim wannabe. And then in terms of law and order, he's got 91 counts against him. And even if you think, you can't possibly think they're all BS. I know a lot of MAGA guys do, right? Oh my God, my poor billionaire is being persecuted. I thought he was above the law like all the other elites, but now they won't let him be above the law. Come on. No one who's in favor of Donald Trump can say they're for law and order. You can't. You could pretend, you could say it. It doesn't mean anything. You're an obvious hypocrite, giant hypocrite. Oh, on January 6th, they should be allowed to break the law. They should be allowed to break into the building. They should be allowed to threaten to murder the officials. Oh, you should be allowed to do fake electors instead of real electors. You should be allowed to break campaign finance laws. We go on, financial fraud. Of course you should be allowed to do that. Why? Because I like him and I don't like you, right? So, okay, whatever. But Tim Scott, look, I'm on the one hand, is he a giant liar? Of course he is. On the other hand, literally every Republican politician is an enormous liar now. So my patience for them has run completely out, zero, none. So what's he gonna say? Is he gonna be honest? Be like, yeah, of course Trump's a bitch, right? Of course all he does is cry. He's not gonna say that. He's gonna say he's a hero and it's all Joe Biden's fault.
By the way, he's not just doing it to remain in the good graces of the Trump supporters. He's doing it, in my opinion, because he's still angling for a VP spot. Like, he claims that he's not looking to be VP. You should never believe a politician who says that. They're always lying when they say that. And I just think that that's what this is really about. In fact, there's all sorts of like conversations happening, all sorts of rumors swirling about how Trump is eyeing Scott as his VP pick. And in fact, Trump was asked about that. I want to fast forward to the last video here. He was asked about it during a recent conversation on Fox News. So let's take a look at what he had to say about the possibility of Scott being his VP pick.
Is Senator Tim Scott on the list now?
No, he's a great guy. You know, he endorsed me. There's an example. Nikki comes from South Carolina. Tim Scott is from South Carolina. But if you look, the governor, great governor, another senator, Lindsey, we happen to like Lindsey. But Henry McMaster knows her very well. He endorsed me. It's very hard for a governor to endorse somebody when you have, you know, I mean, Henry McMaster was the lieutenant governor under her, and he endorsed me. Almost everybody in South Carolina has endorsed me. What does that tell you?
So you ask about the vice presidential, and then we get into the critique of one of the current rivals.
I gotta say, that was a masterful job taking a question about someone else and somehow turning it around so you only talk about yourself.
And
that was
like,
amazing.
That's the other thing, right? Like, as a Democrat, if I say something that is slightly self-aggrandizing, everybody will pulverize you. How dare you? This Trump guy, he goes around like, I'm like God, basically. I'm the greatest thing that's ever happened, man. Nobody knows energy better than me. Nobody knows healthcare better than me. Nobody knows anything better than me. And everybody's like, bravo, bro. Not everybody is in this media, et cetera. I mean, the Republican voters are like, oh, what a great braggart.
Right.
What an unbearable person. I love him.
But also, his message is, oh yeah, I'm considering him because he endorsed me.
Yeah,
right, like he's complimentary toward me. So that's why Tim Scott is willing to go on CNN. And honestly, for anyone who has two brain cells to rub together, you notice he makes a fool out of himself in the way he answers those questions because he wants to remain in Trump's good graces, because my theory is he's still angling for that VP pick.
Oh, that's not a theory, that's a fact. Come on. You're a United States senator and you don't want to be vice president. And then you ran knowing you had no chance to win. And all you've done ever since is kiss Donald Trump. You waited to see whose ass you should kiss. Let's be honest about that. Oh, I'm not endorsing anyone in the primary. Oh, Trump's definitely gonna win. Oh, I'm endorsing Trump. Come on, get that. Look, I have no patience for any of these politicians, man. The media's been telling me my whole life they're honorable people and that we should have great respect for them. I have zero respect for them. I think these politicians are way, way worse than the average person. So when I look at a politician, I think like pathetic guy, right? And so if you're in this system, you're not an outsider, you're an insider. You had to be pathetic to get to that situation. So look, I want to say one more thing about Trump. Trump has turned the entire Republican Party into liars. Why? Because he lies pathologically. Everything, almost everything he says is a lie. But he's forced every Republican to kiss his ass. And so now they all have to back his dumbass lies. So they were already liars anyway, they're politicians. Like, oh yeah, no, I don't work for my donors, wink, right? But now it's just an extra layer. If Trump says that the moon is made of cheese, losers like Tim Scott have to go out and go, well, you know, it could be, it probably is made of cheese, but it's Joe Biden's fault.
But remember, he's doing that for his political career, right? That's what's motivating all of the yes men surrounding Donald Trump. And also consider the fact that, Trump has repeatedly said that should he get elected for a second term, he will use that term to retaliate against his political opponents. And in order to do that, he needs to fill his cabinet with yes men. So as a result, you have people in the Republican Party competing with one another in regard to who can be the biggest loyalist or lapdog to Donald Trump, which is an interesting phenomenon to experience, especially since we've already seen what happens to members of Trump's cabinet, to Trump's vice president. We saw what happened to him, to Mike Pence. And people are still willing to fight to the death to be in that kind of position of power when they know that it's very likely not gonna bode well for them unless they're willing to do everything that Trump wants them to do.
It's absolutely pathetic. I mean, the guy I can't understand most of all is Vivek Ramaswamy, because Tim Scott's a natural born loser whose job is to kiss up to donors and politicians that are above him, and he's consigned himself to being a pathetic groveler and servant of the powerful, right? But Ramaswamy has like $1 billion. He doesn't have to,
I know,
like humiliate himself on a daily basis.
He's
choosing to.
He could spend all day in the Amalfi Coast, okay? Yeah. Vacationing, eating pasta.
On a yacht. He could do whatever the hell he wants. Instead, he's chosen to lick different parts of Donald Trump's body to humiliate himself publicly every day. What a pathetic choice. So go ahead, politicians like Tim Scott, go grovel, 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 and then maybe the dictator wannabe will anoint you. But he does have a good. I'll tell you, one of our members just swung me. I thought there's no way that he's going to pick Carrie Lake or Kristi Noem, et cetera, because he mainly judges based on looks. But Boomer Dragon Cat wrote in with 2 good points here. Tim Scott would be perfect for Trump VP, central casting, that's true, but not enough Riz to upstage
100%.
Okay.
100%. That is such a great point.
So yes. Boomer Dragon Cat, first of all, $100 Blue Apron gift card. We haven't done that in a while. Email at rewards@tyt.com and they'll confirm that you're a member. But you're right. You reminded me like Trump, like Kristi Noem might have too much Riz. And nice work on using the word Riz, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so, but Tim Scott's a perfect piece of lettuce. Like just inoffensive, just sitting there. And a schlep who'll do anything you tell him to do with no morals, no moral compass, et cetera.
Final thing I'll say is he proposed to his girlfriend and now he's engaged to be married.
Sure, of course he is.
I have some speculations about that, but I'm gonna be a better person and not air those speculations.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna be the worst person. Okay, put that picture back up. So number one, this is total sham. In my opinion, we'll see what happens. And they're not gonna, if Trump doesn't pick him, they don't get married. That's my guess, okay?
Okay, bold prediction, let's make note of that.
Okay, number 2, he's just auditioning for Trump here. He's like,
really
that's what I'll do.
Not true.
Like, no. I mean, getting on his hands and knees and going, oh, Donald, I'll do anything for you.
All right.
This is me auditioning. I'm on my knees. I'll even pretend to be straight. Okay, I don't know. I don't know. But he's been an eligible bachelor for a long, long time. And a girlfriend mysteriously popped up right as he decided that he was going to try to, stage, a run for VP here. Right at the end of his presidential run, all of a sudden a girlfriend popped up after 48 years or something, right? That's interesting how that works. Maybe he got lucky for the first time in his life. It's possible, he's a loser, so that's totally possible. I'm giving you all the options.
All right, we gotta take a break. When we come back, we're gonna switch gears a little bit, move off of election-related news and talk about the Georgia election interference case because Fani Willis has made some moves that I just don't understand, and it could hurt the perspective that Americans have in regard to that case. That and more coming up, don't miss it.
Okay, get a load of our New Hampshire coverage, okay? So that's obviously tomorrow. Check it out right after the show. We've got Anna Kasparian, John Iadarola, Francesca Fiorentini, Jordan Ewell, Wasley Lambre, Ravana, and Michael Schur reporting from New Hampshire. Damn, that's a serious coverage right there. Check it out, Republican and Democrats vote. So kind of. That's I can't get into it. All right. Anyways, and tonight's the California Senate debate between Barbara Lee, Katie Porter, and Adam Schiff. I'm going to cover that. So right after debate, check out my video on it right here on Young Turks or youtube.com/The Young Turks. All right, let's go to our members. Jerry Ty 429 says, I never bought DeSantis type hype back in November, December of 2022 after the midterms. GOP is the MAGA party, and DeSantis doesn't even have half a fraction of Trump's charisma. Well, that's fair, Jerry, and it turns out you were right. Jenks Left Tricep Fury says, as a Floridian, I'm dreading him coming back to the state and pick up where he left off with his despicable racist, sexist, and other policies, and of course, kissing Trump's ass.
I have a feeling he might lay off of that stuff now that he's not running for president.
Yeah, and by the way, it didn't really work in his run. Yeah, he went he went as far right as he could on racism, sexism, etc., and it didn't work. So that's point one. Point two is, good news for you guys. He doesn't care about Florida at all anymore because he's termed out. He can't run for governor anymore. So either maybe he'll try to run for senator, but he get a cabinet position or run for president again. So he's probably not going to do that much because it's all about, for these career politicians, it's all about me, 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 me. He built up all those things that he did in Florida to try to run for president. Now he's going to be despondent and take his high heels home. CK Progressive says, good evening from Detroit, where we're completely preoccupied with playoff football right now. Sure, we could be on the verge of World War III, but we don't care because we're too busy praying for the football gods, so that the Lions can make it to the Super Bowl for the first time ever. So I know because I was just in Detroit and I was at a very serious event for Gaza, and a city councilman from Dearborn gave an impassioned speech on that issue, ending with free, free Palestine. And let's go Lions. I was like, I did not expect that. Okay, but having bet on them, I'm glad they won. All right, Boomer Dragon Cat says, Tim Scott would be perfect. Oh, I already read that one. And Mayhem Mendez writes in on Twitch, so weird that Meatball Ron's strategy of being awkward and unlikable didn't translate into votes. That is strange. Bradshaw Crew One says, Fox is all over Trump now. They were pushing for Ron. Oh yeah. See, that's the thing. Once you win, especially on the Republican side, well, no, on both sides. Everybody then comes and kisses your ass and is right back on the propaganda boat. Progressive B writes in, Satan should be forced to carry his presidential run to term. It's a meme that I've seen online too. But I'm not sure that we really want that. All right, God bless. We'll be back. Back on TYT, Jank, Anna, Brad, David. Brad just joined, becoming a bit of an American hero. Speaking of which, let's give you a list of American heroes. Benjamin Morrill gifted a Young Turks membership. O Beach Babe 21 gifted 10, which is amazing. And Jason Olea gifted 5. You guys are awesome. Way to look out for one another. Love you guys for it. Anna.
Well, we've got some unfortunate updates on the election interference case out of Georgia. So let's give you the details.
The law of disqualification in Georgia does not require either of them to step aside. It's not a disqualifying event for two prosecutors to have a relationship.
Allegations of corruption and conflicts of interest are swirling around about Fani Willis and her prosecutorial team as the Georgia election interference case against Donald Trump and his co-conspirators heats up. Now, there are rumors that Willis had an improper relationship with Nathan Wade, the chief prosecutor of the case, and that she accompanied him on 2 out-of-state trips. In fact, some of these trips included out-of-country, tropical vacation trips. So what exactly are the allegations and how would they impact the overall Georgia election case against Donald Trump. Well, Mike Roman, a Trump co-defendant, alleged in a court filing nearly 2 weeks ago that Willis and Chief Prosecutor Nathan Wade have been in an improper clandestine personal relationship, and that Willis may have broken the law by hiring Wade as a special prosecutor and then allowing him to pay for vacations across the world with her unrelated to the work on the case. Now, Roman unsurprisingly called for the prosecutors to be disqualified and for the charges against him to be dropped. That is unlikely going to happen. I mean, the charge is being dropped, but there will be a hearing to decide what the fate of Fani Willis will be as a result of some of this information that's been coming out. Lawyers for Wade's estranged wife filed a motion in their divorce case that included credit card statements that appeared to show Wade had purchased airline tickets for himself and Willis to Aruba and San Francisco. It's unknown whether Willis paid him back. And Willis alleged in a motion to basically squash a subpoena seeking to depose her in Wade's divorce case that Wade's estranged wife, her name is Jocelyn Mayfield Wade, was colluding with those who are seeking to basically disrupt this case against Donald Trump and the co-conspirators. On Friday, Georgia GOP Chairman Josh McCoon circulated a 2020 video of Willis saying that she would fire any employee who sleeps with a coworker and promising not to date people that work under me. And there are other issues too, including Wade's lack of prosecutorial experience in the type of case that he's the lead prosecutor of, namely the Georgia election interference case. And then there's also some issues in regard to how much Wade has basically billed for his services compared to other prosecutors in that case. And here's some more details on that.
Now, Mr. Wade, as you said, his primary area of practice was personal injury law. Not, in my view, qualified to handle a major, complicated racketeering case. Nonetheless, he's been hired along with 2 other lawyers from the outside to come in and help the DA. Nothing wrong with that. But if you look at the amount of money they've been paid and they've billed, Mr. Wade has billed $650,000+. The others have billed $70,000 and $90,000. So there's a question of, is he working 9 times as much as the other folks? The other big problem, though, is there's clearly a relationship of some nature, we don't know exactly, between the DA and Mr. Wade, and some of that money is being used on travel that the DA is accompanying him on. So some of the money that the DA's office is paying out to Mr. Wade is now being used for personal purposes for the DA. So there's a real potential conflict of interest there. Really important to keep in mind. We have a hearing in that case set for February 15th. So we'll get more information then. But at a minimum, it looks terrible and it raises legitimate questions about the DA.
So in summary, the argument, Cenk, is that she is having an improper relationship with Nathan Wade. She then hires him to be the lead prosecutor on this case. He proceeds to bill $650,000 as he works on this case, which is far more than the other prosecutors working on it. And then the allegation is that some of that money was then used to go on trips with Fani Willis. That is what they're alleging. Obviously, more information needs to come out and an investigation needs to happen. But what are your thoughts on all of this, especially if they end up being true?
Yeah, so first of all, improper relationship in the office. Look, that's not my business. It's normally a local issue, a small issue, et cetera. It depends on a million different pieces of context. But in this case, there is something that I am concerned about, which is, okay, it's one thing if you have a relationship with someone at the office. It's another thing if you're having a relationship with someone outside the office and then you hire them and you send $695,000 of state taxpayer money to them, then we've got a significant issue, okay? Really significant issue. Now, having said that, this is really important, guys, because the lack of logic drives me nuts. So they're like, oh, Fani Willis might be doing something inappropriate. That's why Trump is innocent.
Yeah.
What? No, it doesn't have anything to do with Trump's case. Whether Trump is innocent or guilty has nothing to do with whether she's using taxpayer money to take vacations to Aruba, right? That's a different problem. And if you say, hey, we should look into that and hold her accountable, I totally agree. Hey, by the way, MAGA, you see how that's how it works if you're not a hypocrite. You say, oh, she's on my side, but I want to hold her accountable. He's not on my side. I want to hold him accountable. That's called being consistent. You might want to look into it.
But Cenk, like the thing that I'm even more bothered by Okay, what you just mentioned is something we should be concerned with 100%. But the thing that I'm most bothered by is that it appears that she hired him as the lead prosecutor, knowing that he has expertise as a personal injury attorney, but doesn't have expertise in prosecuting the type of case that they're trying Donald Trump on.
Yeah, look,
and that's
guys,
like so unbelievably irresponsible.
So I wasn't trying to judge that too much because sometimes you never know the details. Maybe he had some background, we're not. But now that all the details have come out, no, you don't hire a personal injury lawyer to prosecute the former president of the United States on one of the most important cases in the country. And it's an historic case, a personal injury lawyer. Look, guys, I'm not dissing personal injury lawyers. It just, that doesn't make any sense.
Law, yeah.
It doesn't make any sense at all. So it's like hiring a sports agent or something. He's a lawyer. Yeah, technically, but why are you hiring him instead of a prosecutor with expertise in this? So no, it doesn't make any sense.
And remember, the Georgia case is incredibly important because should Donald Trump get elected, which there's a good chance that he will get elected, he would be able to pardon himself in the federal cases, but he would not be able to do so when it comes to a state case, meaning the Georgia election interference case.
No, I'm now, the more we talk about it, Anna, the more angry I get at her. Like, what are you doing endangering potentially the most important case in the country because of a personal relationship? Are you nuts? And did you not think that it was gonna get revealed? Look, she hasn't said anything about it. She hasn't even denied it yet. That means she definitely did it. Let's keep it real.
And these rumors started swirling weeks ago, and she has not denied it. She hasn't even directly addressed it. She indirectly addressed it. And I wanted to give you some information about that because those close to her, her allies, are pretty irritated with the way she's handled this. Several Willis allies have said privately they were disappointed with her remarks last weekend at a historically black church in Atlanta, in which she described herself as flawed and imperfect, but did not directly address the allegations. She defended her decision to hire Wade, calling him a superstar with impeccable credentials. Some have also criticized Willis's claim during that speech that race is the motivating factor behind the attacks against her or the allegations against her. So they were disappointed with that response as well. But again, like, it does, sure, it brings up some ethical concerns, especially when it comes to the amount of money that was billed. But I just want to reiterate that the most concerning part is that you have someone who's not experienced in RICO cases trying Donald Trump in one of the most historic and important election interference cases, certainly in American history. And so this does serve, and the other concern, Cenk, is that this is going to serve as a distraction, right?
Of course it is.
Conservative media is covering this, wall-to-wall coverage. And so a longtime ally of Fani Willis says that, maybe there needs to be some recusals here. So let's take a look at what he has to say about this.
The challenge with Mr. Wade remaining on this case is that it's become a distraction from what is one of the most serious alleged conspiracies in American history. Poppy, we all heard that January 2nd, 2021 tape when Donald Trump said to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, just find 11,780 votes that didn't exist. That's where the focus needs to be. We need to get the case on track, moving quickly. A trial has been requested for 2024 and not discussing this relationship. Not mandatory, but he should do the right thing.
So he's calling for Wade to step down from the case. Notably, he did not call for the same thing for Fani Willis. But I do think that's the right thing to do. I mean, in the very least, I think Wade should step down from this case.
I don't know that she can even step down from it because I have to look into that because she has an elected position. But for him, it's a no-brainer. Look, there's two things that are no-brainers. One is Wade should recuse himself instantly. What are you doing? What are you mucking up the case for? Yeah, I know it's irrational to say, hey, we got an issue of potentially corruption here, but it doesn't have anything to do with, by the way, not only does it not have anything to do with Trump's case, it also doesn't have anything to do with any other case. Like if Fani Willis was using him on a murder case, should we just let the guy go even though he's a murderer? Because they were having an affair? It doesn't make any sense, right? But is it confusing people and endangering the case regardless? Yes. Should he recuse himself? Of course. And second of all, when you use charges of racism when they don't apply, you do great damage to the cause of fighting real racism, and you're incredibly selfish about it. So I have no sympathy for you, okay? So going out there like, oh yeah, just because I'm sleeping with this guy and funnel $700,000 of taxpayer money to him, oh now it's because I'm black. Get out of here, man, that's nonsense, total nonsense. So we've been trying to fight racism here for all these years, and anytime these selfish people come by that are almost always powerful people, when they're called out on their wrongdoing, oh, what can I hide behind? No, I have no tolerance for it.
When we come back from the break, we'll switch gears, talk a little bit about international news, and give you updates on the war on Gaza. Don't miss it.
All right, back on TYT. Let's go to members again. Throat Dragon says, I work for personal injury lawyers. They have no clue about criminal law. But that's normal. Of course, that's not their expertise. A divorce lawyer also is not going to try a murder case. It doesn't make sense. Even within my own team, there's a campaign finance lawyer and a constitutional lawyer. They're different because they have different expertise. Bringing in a rando personal injury lawyer that you're going to Aruba with on the most important case in the country is maniacal. Trump's Lady Lump says, I couldn't give two damns about this until Republicans go after Clarence Thomas for 3,000 times the amount of corruption. This is nothing but a hatchet job. No, so you're both right and wrong, okay? So we can criticize Clarence Thomas for all of his wrongdoings and still criticize Fani Willis for her wrongdoings. We don't have to pick a lane and go, okay, we're only gonna defend and we're going to defend our side, right or wrong, right? We don't have to do that. And by the way, though, the part that you're like, I get your frustration because a lot of times the left, Democrats, etc., good people do the right thing, and the bad guys never do the right thing. So it creates an uneven battlefield, and I'm super frustrated by that. But we can't let her do this with taxpayer money.
Yeah, and also don't allow the bad behavior of your political opponents to convince you that it makes sense to lose your integrity. Right? Being consistent and having integrity, having principles, I think is incredibly important. And so if it's wrong with Clarence Thomas doing what he's doing, I think it's wrong, after an investigation, after all of this is proven to be true, it's wrong for Fani Willis to do this.
Yeah, and by the way, if miraculously it turns out it's not true, obviously we'll come back and tell you guys. Mechanic 66 says Fani Willis has been more interested in a political career than running a serious trial. But on that one, you could really say that's true of all of these elected officials that are prosecutors, to be honest, on both sides. Dirge said, as a straight guy who hasn't been on a date in many, many years, I'm going to give Tim Scott the benefit of the doubt. And by the way, brother, there's nothing wrong with that. Look, and it might turn out that he was straight all along. He just never ever wanted to show a girlfriend, etc. What do I know? So I'm just telling you what the reality is and how it's curious given the political context. But it might be that just coincidentally, he happened to get a girlfriend as he's in the national spotlight for the first time. So it's possible. Am I not the most merciful man? All right, Twitch, Moonlit Productions, 7 months with Bezos bucks, which you can do too. If you have Amazon Prime, it's free on Twitch, but we get the money. It doesn't cost you anything. Check it out at tyt.com/prime. Progressive B, thank you for gifting us up. We appreciate you. YouTube members, Low Class News said, Cenk kills me sometimes. They have comedians on often, but he's naturally funny sometimes.
Sometimes.
Can I give him a $100 gift card? No, I can't do that for compliments, but I love you, brother.
Why?
Okay.
Why can't you do that for compliments?
No.
I mean, what's the point?
I'm an ethical person. Burning writes in, why does Meatball Ron always look like he wants to cry? Good question. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. One of our YouTube members wrote in, I was kidding around during the social break about giving a $100 Blue Apron gift card to someone who complimented me. CL Alvarado wrote in, Anna is a beautiful flower in a garden by a peaceful afternoon. $100, no, I'm just kidding.
I think that this is a loyal viewer of the show.
I knew you were going to say that.
Who always tunes in when we're doing the show live and deserves credit for that.
Yeah, no. Okay. I'm just giving the gift cards as usual for good observations and funny
I thought that
comments.
was a fantastic observation, okay? Anyway, all right, let's move on. Well, we have more denialism within the United States and the State Department in regard to the real intentions of Israel's far-right government. So I feel no pleasure in sharing this story with you, but I have to.
On Friday, the president did make his view clear about a two-state solution, but he also suggested that Netanyahu was open to that view. So did Netanyahu express to the president that? Or why did the president think that?
They had a very constructive conversation, and I think I just need to leave it at that.
In just the past week, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has repeated over and over and over again that he intends to prevent a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine. But John Kirby and Joe Biden think we're all morons because they claim that a two-state solution is still possible, even with Benjamin Netanyahu continuing to serve as the prime minister of Israel. So on Friday, Biden spoke with Netanyahu for the first time in many, many weeks about possible resolutions to the ongoing conflict. Yet again, Bibi rejected the prospect of a separate Palestinian state. Nonetheless, Biden told reporters several hours after the call the following. There are a number of types of two-state solutions.
Are there?
Yeah, are there? What does that even mean? There's a number of countries that are members of the UN that don't have their own militaries, number of states that have limitations, and so I think there's ways in which this could work. It's not, okay, so let me just make this clear. It's not a two-state solution if Israel has power over the Palestinian state, meaning they get to call the shots in regard to whether the Palestinians have a military to protect themselves, whether Israel has control over what goes in and what goes out of the territory. Like, it's just a ridiculous notion.
No, guys, it's worse than that because Biden just threw away the two-state solution.
He did.
That comment is saying we're not doing a two-state solution. Netanyahu didn't listen to me, I listened to him. I'm not the boss of him, he's the boss of me. Because the two-state solution is two independent sovereign states. If you say a state without a military, that's the half withdrawal that they did in Gaza, where they're still super frustrated, Israel's still in charge, and they go, well, technically we withdrew, but if you do anything wrong, we're gonna cut your water, power, electricity, or anything that we think you did wrong, and we're gonna bomb the living crap out of you and kill all of you. But hey, we withdrew. So if you're gonna do that, that's gonna make it worse, not better. And here's the president of the United States saying, okay, I'm gonna give Netanyahu everything he wants. It's disgusting.
So this is a side note, but I've been dying to make this point because I think it's important. The argument against a ceasefire that we keep hearing from Israel over and over again is, well, the second we do a ceasefire, then we're gonna be victims of Hamas. Hamas is it's gonna threaten our security, Hamas is gonna come attack us again. Okay, is Benjamin Netanyahu unable to use all the weapons to lean on the Iron Dome, which we fund year after year, to protect the people who are currently living in Israel? Is he unable to secure the border with Gaza? Okay, because it's just such a, if that's the case, if all those weapons and the Iron Dome is doing nothing to help protect Israeli civilians, why are we paying for it?
Yeah, guys.
And I'm saying that because Hamas and people in the Gaza Strip don't have a military. Okay, yes, Hamas was able to carry out those atrocities and those terror attacks, but they don't have a navy, they don't have an army, they don't have, they don't have like the military capabilities that Israel does. And so they keep talking about this as if this is a symmetrical war, when in reality it's an asymmetrical war. And the reason why the IDF didn't respond to what Hamas was doing is because they were too busy protecting illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank. It took them 6 hours to respond to what Hamas was doing. That's on Netanyahu, okay? The real threat to the safety of Israelis is Benjamin Netanyahu. But anyway, they can't have a ceasefire. It would be so dangerous. Okay.
Yeah. So look, guys, a couple of things here. Number one, this whole idea of that Israel is being oppressed by the Hamas and the Palestinians, that it's a mirage. Like, so I'm not saying that Hamas didn't attack Israel and cause damage. They definitely did, and we condemn them for it. But the idea that they're somehow stronger than Israel, that the Palestinians are endangering Israel's existence, instead of Israel literally blocking the existence of their state, is topsy-turvy. It's just a total Orwellian talking point, as if the Palestinians control the Israelis rather than the other way around.
That's the way it keeps getting framed.
Yeah. And so I want you to understand, anyone who tells you that is purposely lying to you to try to trick you. No, it's Israel that has been occupying the Palestinians for 75 years. And then this idea of, well, I mean, they can't govern themselves if we let them. They want to kill all the Israelis, and so these monsters cannot be allowed to ever govern themselves. Well, couldn't every empire use that against every minority? So the Turks say, well, the Armenians, if we let them, they'd kill all the Turks. Well, at the time when the Turks were oppressing them, they might have, maybe the Armenian rebels might have wanted to kill all the Turks. That doesn't mean you can't give them a state. It doesn't mean that you can't free them. Because if you go by that logic, no one will ever be free. Oh, well, you don't love your oppressor enough. We've been occupying you and putting our boot on your neck. Well, you don't love us? You don't love us enough? That's it. We're gonna put more boot on your neck and we're gonna kill your family members. Why don't you love us enough? No, it's your fault for not loving us, so we're gonna keep oppressing you. Nonsense, nonsense. Lastly, if you say the Palestinians are the only people in the world who can't govern themselves, you are deeply racist. Period. Period. Don't tell me nonsense excuses about, oh, they can't be trusted. Well, that's, yeah, you're saying I'm a racist, I hate Palestinians, and I think that they're subhuman and cannot govern themselves like every other ethnicity in the world. Every other ethnicity in the world can govern themselves except Palestinians? No, that's a deeply, deeply racist ideology.
So let's get back to Biden. Asked what Netanyahu was open to, Biden said, I'll let you know. But he rejected the notion that a so-called two-state solution is impossible as long as Netanyahu is in power. No, it's not. And he brushed off the idea of imposing conditions on American security aid to Israel if the prime minister continues to resist. Now, hold on, Cenk, hold on. Go to the last graphic here, because I just want to remind you of what Biden said in a closed-door fundraiser just this past December. At a fundraiser event in December, President Biden singled out Israel's Prime Minister for National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir, by name, saying in a speech that he and the new folks don't want anything remotely approaching a two-state solution, adding that they want retribution not only against Hamas, but against all Palestinians. Biden said that during the fundraiser. So why is he lying to the American people right now? That's what I want to know. Why is he willing to tell the truth to his donors in a closed-door fundraiser, but when it comes to speaking to the American people, he lies to us and tells us, no, two-state solution is totally possible. In fact, it's totally possible with Netanyahu in office. Come on.
Yeah, look, once he brushed off the idea of imposing conditions on Israel, that is a unilateral surrender to Netanyahu. That is the president of the United States saying, I'm not allowed to question him. He can say anything he wants, and I know, because I said it behind closed doors, that they don't want a two-state solution, and Netanyahu says it all the time. He talks to me, then he goes on a national stage or an international stage and goes, I'm not gonna listen to America, they're gonna listen to me. And we're not gonna have a two-state solution. And Biden comes and goes, I won't impose any conditions. I swear to you, I beg you, Netanyahu, I beg you. You loser, you're pathetic.
I'm just
totally pathetic.
I'm sick of the gaslighting and I'm sick of the lies. We're not morons. We see what's happening on the ground in Gaza. We see the high civilian death toll. We see all those children suffering or just dying. And then at the same time, you have Biden speaking from both sides of his mouth, telling his donors one thing, and then lying to the American people, saying something entirely different. And by the way, how did Benjamin Netanyahu respond to Biden's claims that a two-state solution is still possible, even with Benjamin Netanyahu as the leader of Israel? Here's what Netanyahu said. I will not compromise on full Israeli security control over the entire area west of the River Jordan. And this is irreconcilable with a Palestinian state. AKA from the river to the sea, Israel will control the land. Pretty clear. Yesterday, he even doubled down and actually bragged about his role in preventing a two-state solution, saying, my insistence is what has prevented over the years the establishment of a Palestinian state that would have constituted an existential danger to Israel. Not noting that he's the real danger to Israel, of course. As long as I am prime minister, I will continue to strongly insist on this. And the Likud party's original platform stated that between the sea and the Jordan, there will be only one Israeli sovereignty. But when John Kirby was asked about Netanyahu saying all of this, saying that Israel will control all of the land west of the Jordan River, he basically did everything he could to avoid answering the question. Take a look.
Did the president address Netanyahu's use of the phrase from the river to the sea in their conversation today? I know the White House has previously said that phrase is divisive, so.
I'm not aware that that specific phrase was discussed.
Do you condemn him using that phrase?
Look, there's a connotation with that phrase. We've talked about this before. But when you use the phrase river to the sea, it speaks basically to the mantra of Hamas and in their manifesto, where they basically describe the geographic bounds of what they believe to be Palestine. And if you look at it on the map, if you go look at the four corners that they describe it, it's basically the state of Israel. They just don't believe it should exist. So again, it's not a phrase that that we recommend using, given because of that context.
But this wasn't Hamas. This was Netanyahu.
I understand. I don't have anything more on that, and I certainly don't have anything more on the conversation to read out with respect to that.
I love that the reporter had to clarify. We're not talking about Hamas. We're talking about Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel. And Kirby followed that up with, this isn't about trying to twist somebody's arm or force a change in their thinking, meaning Israel's thinking. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made clear his concerns about that. President Biden has made clear his strong conviction that a two-state solution is still the right path ahead, and we're going to continue to make that case.
No, you're not. Biden just said that he's willing to do a nonsense, non-two-state solution where Israel controls Palestinian military, security, and everything else. That's still an occupation.
Yeah.
So you're not in favor of the two-state solution. Okay, by the way, I know people in power in this country don't care about hypocrisy at all. They love hypocrisy. So are we rehiring the deans of Harvard and Penn? Because they got fired for not strongly enough condemning from the river to the sea. Here's John Kirby, is he gonna get fired?
No, but.
No, is he gonna get fired?
No, Cenk, but you're mixing things up. It's okay when one side says it.
Oh.
It's the Palestinian side that's not allowed.
And by the way, the Palestinian side isn't doing it. Netanyahu is actually committing the genocide from the river to the sea. He's in the middle of committing that genocide, and then he brags about it. John Kirby didn't denounce him at all.
Nope.
I heard that if you say from the river to the sea and somebody doesn't denounce you strongly enough, they should be fired. I know, so can anyone in power, in media or in politics admit we're never going to be honest or fair, ever? If Israel does something, it's perfectly okay. We don't care what it is. We don't care what kind of war crimes, ethnic cleansing, occupation, etc. It's perfectly okay. Palestinians, you dare oppose your own occupation? That's it, you monster, savage terrorists. Yeah, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the lies, all right? Now, Netanyahu just told you he's not a partner for peace. He said it very clearly, never was in favor of the Palestinian state, never gonna be in favor of the Palestinian state, and as long as I'm in charge, I'm gonna block it. You just saw him say it. You saw the quotes for yourself. Not a partner for peace. I understand that's why we're not allowed to talk to Palestinians about peace. Oh, Hamas is not a partner. Palestinian Authority is not a partner. Nobody's a partner for peace. It's their fault, it's their fault. Okay, now it's Netanyahu's fault. There's no question about it, right? No, another excuse. Oh no, it's okay if Israel doesn't want peace. It's always the Palestinians' fault. It's their fault for being occupied. It's their fault for getting killed, 25,000 of them now. And then, look guys, whether you like it or not, it's not just about the Palestinians, it's about Israel. As long as the occupation exists, it'll never have peace.
Nope.
And you can say, oh, Jane, don't say that. It doesn't matter if I say it or not.
It's just demonstrably true. It's demonstrably true.
Do you think that any people, people from Ecuador, people from Nigeria, people from Palestine, any people are gonna say, oh yeah, you can permanently occupy us. We surrender to you, we'll now be your dogs. You can do whatever you want to us. We just give up, we give up completely. Total utter surrender. We are now servants of the Israelis. Do you think they're gonna say that? Or do you think they're gonna fight back? You'd have to be the dumbest person in the world to not think they're gonna fight back. You might say, hey, it's wrong, I don't want them to fight back. I don't want them to kill civilians, I say that. I say that I don't want them to kill civilians. But it doesn't matter, because they're going to fight back. So the only way to get to peace is through peace. Israel did a deal with Egypt, peace deal, and it worked. Peace deals work. Peace deals bring you peace. War brings you war. So Israel's got a choice to make. America doesn't have a choice. Because our leaders will never, ever be fair or honest, ever. They will do whatever any Israeli prime minister says. It doesn't matter if he's left wing or right wing. And if you're denying that, that doesn't matter either, guys. The whole world knows that Israel is in charge. No, you could say, no. Every American president tells every Israeli leader that they can have money unconditionally, no matter how much they don't listen to us. But we're gonna trick everyone into thinking, no, Israel's not in charge. You can try, but it's not gonna work. It's never gonna give you peace. The only thing that can give you peace is end the occupation. If you don't want that, then okay, you want permanent war. And the next time you're attacked, don't be like, oh my God, I'm so surprised. Oh my God, I can't believe that they didn't accept our occupation. Don't they know we're superior to them and we get to occupy them permanently? I can't believe they attacked. Now, we have a right to defend ourselves. They have no rights, no right to defend themselves. And they can't govern those losers, savage terrorists. What, it's not racist? No, deeply racist. The occupation is a moral evil. It is the core of the problem. If you don't end the occupation, you will have war forever and ever. And America will pay for it, and America will lie on behalf of Israel. And that's what's happened every single time. And now our president has surrendered to Netanyahu. He's loathed even in Israel. Even in Israel, he's still loathed. But no one loves Netanyahu more than Joe Biden. Now he's killed a two-state solution. Thanks a lot, Joe Biden. You loser, you pathetically weak creature.
All right, we got to take a break. More when we come back.
Now I'm gonna do something very different here and read some one-star reviews of the Young Turks on Apple Podcasts. Donnie Franchise said, pretty much it's like listening to a trash compactor. Someone else said, negative, anti-American propaganda. And others said, out of context, misquotes, typical leftists who are afraid to debate, just smear. These two would be perfect for CNN or MSLSD. Well, Donnie, you might have a point, because I feel like a trash compactor right now after taking in all those garbage reviews. But thanks for listening anyway. We are, in fact, unapologetically progressive. And if you're not ready for bold commentary, then we're not the show for you. On the Young Turks, we speak up about the issues that matter, and we want to make positive change happen. And now here's why we actually do the show. Mariel Morales said, found this podcast from the True Crime Podcast, Fruit Loops, and other great progressive podcasts. I've become an instant fan of the Young Turks. Great conversation, great takes, very well composed, factual podcast, very informative. Love to hear that. Z55 said, it's a joy to experience such awareness and intelligence from fascinating people. And Anna is gorgeous and brilliant. Apparently I'm just fascinating, but I'll take it. Paul for Progress said, news well delivered. Appreciate it. KOOK said, Democrats and Republicans are fair game for TYT, and if Anna or Cenk provide disinformation about anything, they will admit they made a mistake and correct it. We appreciate you noticing that we are honest. To people who actually listen to the substance of the show, thank you. Your listenership supports what we do. Leave a 5-star rating for the Young Turks on Apple Podcasts. Let's take the ratings back from the trolls. Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. Here at TYT, we understand this. That's why we're not gonna price gouge you or use inflation as an excuse to raise our prices. A TYT membership is not your typical subscription, but basic membership is still just $4.99. So what do you get for that price? For starters, you're getting exclusive programming, unique, exclusive designs from Shop TYT, access to a members-only chat, giveaways, emojis, and so many other amazing perks. But most importantly, you're helping to make an impact. As a TYT member, you not only help us do the shows every day, but you drive real positive change in the process. In 2017, we helped to start Justice Democrats right here on TYT. That's a group that got a dozen progressives elected into Congress. That's amazing, you did that. Your support also funds TYT's very own investigative reporting. Just recently, our reporters exposed the Fellowship Foundation and pressured lawmakers into boycotting that bigoted event. Isn't that amazing? We raised over $30,000 for Jackson, Mississippi, and delivered clean water to thousands of people in need. Our petitions, polls, and community of activists help keep the corruption of Washington in check. That's the impact of what just $4.99 a month from our members can do. And we're just getting started. Positive change doesn't occur overnight, but with your contribution, we can make it happen together. Times are tough in America. The cost of living is through the roof. But mainstream media doesn't talk about the stories that actually matter to your everyday life. At TYT, we cover the stories that corporate media wouldn't dare to talk about. But we need your support to do it. You can't put a price on fighting for positive change. So become a TYT member at a price that's right for you. So that way you get to pick the price. When you go to tyt.com/join, scroll down to the name your price option, and you can become a member at a price point that makes sense for you. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Sammy Mukarram. Sammy, thanks for joining. They hit the join button below on YouTube. You can do likewise. It really helps the show. It's really important. Thank you, Sammy. Anna.
Well, we've been focusing a lot on what's been going down in the Gaza Strip, but unfortunately, Palestinians in the West Bank have also been suffering from pretty extreme violence, oftentimes from Israeli settlers. So let's give you an update on that. You're watching footage from a funeral in the West Bank for a 17-year-old American citizen from Louisiana who traveled to the West Bank to learn about his heritage. He had been there for about a year, but unfortunately, Tawfiq Abdel Jabbar was shot and killed by Israeli authorities, according to his family, and they say that he had planned to go to business school in the West Bank. Now that day will never come. Now, his family says that he was the victim of mounting settler violence in the territory, which has in fact been on the rise since the war on Gaza began. His father, Hafez Abdel Jabbar, said Tawfiq had gone out for a picnic with his friends on Friday when he was shot by a person witnesses told Abdel Jabbar appeared to be an Israeli settler who initially opened fire, followed by someone wearing a uniform for the Israeli Defense Forces.
In other words, terrorists.
So his father described racing to the scene when he heard that his son had been shot. He found him bleeding in a truck with 2 gunshot wounds, one to the head and another to the chest. I took him with my bare hands out of the car, he said. Blood could be seen basically splattered all over the windshield and seats of the truck that he was shot in. and then shards of glass were strewn across the terrain where his family says the vehicle had rolled over before coming to a halt on the road. Now, his grieving father also said people in IDF uniforms were already on the scene when he arrived, and he said that they pointed their gun at us, warning, "We will shoot you," if he and others did not leave the area. But his father said that we did not care. We went to the car and grabbed him, meaning he grabbed his son. Now, what are the Israeli authorities saying about this? The IDF said it had received a report regarding an off-duty police officer and a civilian who had fired toward a Palestinian individual suspected of hurling rocks in the area. It confirmed an IDF soldier was also in the area and said it was investigating a claim that the soldier fired at the Palestinian. Now, Abdel Jabbar dismissed the suggestion his son might have been hurling rocks as a lie. I mean, the guy was driving. 17-year-old was driving in a vehicle when he was shot in the head. But he said, even if rocks were thrown in the area, so what? If they were throwing rocks 150 meters to the street, what is it going to do to a tank or to a Jeep or to a car full of soldiers? You're gonna shoot the car 10 times because a guy threw a rock? And the answer to that, based on previous instances that we've shared on the show, is yes, that is exactly what they're gonna do.
And remember, okay, so first of all, there's absolutely no information other than Israeli propaganda that he threw a rock. So I wouldn't even go there. Second of all, but okay, fine. Let's go with the hypothetical that might have happened. He's driving a car, that means he's by definition not throwing a rock at that moment. What would you do if you were an off-duty police officer and you suspected he might have thrown a rock earlier? You might want to go and arrest him, right? And find out, hey, did I get the right guy, etc., right? No, they just shot and murdered him. There's no question that they shot and murdered him, and by the way, then ran away. Whoever the off-duty officer was, if he was involved, and the settler, right? So that's just a murder, period.
Besides which, if the 17-year-old wanted to cause pain or damage to someone, injure someone, hurt someone, kill someone, he's in a car, he's driving a vehicle. Why would he throw rocks out of that vehicle? Like, he could cause much more damage with the car itself. I just don't believe the argument at all. And we haven't really gotten any answers from the IDF or the Israeli government in this regard. The United States, of course, I'll give you the statements from John Kirby in just a moment. But what's amazing to me, Cenk, is that this was an American citizen. He was born in the United States. He was raised in Louisiana. He had been in the West Bank for about a year. He was planning on going to school there, and he wanted to learn about his heritage in the West Bank. His family in the United States was like, things are looking a little dicey over there. Do you want to come back? We're worried about your safety. And this 17-year-old thought everything's gonna be okay. He didn't want to leave.
Yeah, so all the witnesses say that they were at a picnic, but I know what Israeli supporters are gonna say. No, all Palestinians are liars. We only believe the IDF. Because democracy is the only, Israel's the only democracy. There's such a beautiful, beautiful democratic system. Do you know what the military courts that adjudicate in the West Bank, what their conviction rates are? Well, it's a little bit, let's see if you can figure out the pattern. When it comes to Israeli soldiers or settlers, conviction rates hover around 0%.
Those military prosecutors must be doing a hell of a job, Cenk.
Well, it turns out they are terrific though when it comes to Palestinians. When Palestinians are charged, the conviction rate is near 99%.
Oh, that's weird, what a coincidence.
But I'm sure it has nothing to do with race or ethnicity. And I'm sure that it is a beautiful, flourishing democracy that happens to imprison 5 million Palestinians and let settlers assassinate them that are and act like terrorists and then let them go at every time that they murder a Palestinian. I'm sure that it's just a beautiful, flourishing democracy. Hey, are we Americans or are we the second state of Israel? What are we? Okay, if you don't like that talking point, I'd love to see an American politician other than Bernie Sanders, God bless his heart, stand up to the Israelis and go, no, you're not allowed to murder Americans. You're not allowed to murder Americans.
This is crazy.
And now Israel is so unbelievably strong in America that we say, oh yeah, you can murder any Americans you like. Shireen Abu Akleh was an American journalist. They assassinated her, no consequences. In fact, America helped Israel cover up the crime. Everybody knows they assassinated her. The New York Times, CNN, they all did excellent investigations on that. This poor kid, he's an American, he is assassinated by a couple of terrorists, And Joe Biden is going to ready to give a standing ovation. There will be zero accountability, none. Because Joe Biden doesn't care about Americans. He wants to serve Israel instead.
Hours before, National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said in a briefing that while US officials didn't have perfect context about exactly what happened, the White House was, oh, look at that. At least they're seriously concerned about it.
What a joke you guys are. You aren't concerned at all. Stop putting out statements like that. Do something.
But let's talk about the broader environment in the West Bank, which is governed by the Palestinian Authority. It is not governed by Hamas, but nonetheless, the Palestinians living in the West Bank have been dealing with Israeli settlers and security forces raining terror on them, especially after October 7th. Since October 7th, 344 Palestinians, including 88 children, have been killed by security forces and settlers across the West Bank. And that's according to data from the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, a group, by the way, that some defenders of Israel call biased against Israel. You have, what's the name of that Trump lawyer?
Alan Dershowitz.
Alan Dershowitz called it, in bed with Hamas, terrorist organization.
Alan Dershowitz
just to discredit them for saying anything, daring to say anything that doesn't immediately side with Israel. And over 1,000 Palestinians, by the way, since October 7th, have been driven out of their homes in the West Bank. By the way, let me just remind you, these are settlers who continue to build illegal settlements in Palestinian territory in the West Bank. So a spokesperson for B'Tselem, an organization that documents human rights violations against Palestinians, says that cases of reported settler violence are rarely thoroughly investigated by Israeli authorities and even more rarely prosecuted. And unfortunately, this situation in the West Bank is likely to get worse because now there are reports indicating that Israel is ramping up military operations in the West Bank, which again is not governed by Hamas, it's governed by the Palestinian Authority. And they're using kind of similar arguments for some of the damage they're doing to infrastructure in the area. They're arguing that bombs, IEDs are being hidden. And so they got to rip up the infrastructure in the West Bank in order to find the bombs. And so I want to go to the next video because this features the director of the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees. His name is Adam Bouloukis. Here's what he has to say.
Since the 7th of October, things have been ramped up. We have frequent incursions, over 10,000 Israeli military incursions in the West Bank in all of 2023, and a large portion of them coming after the 7th of October.
Wow.
6,000 people arrested. So it's a very, very violent, very volatile context at the moment.
And Philippe Lazzarini also said, and I'll quote him again, recent incursions caused severe damage to infrastructure, including water and electricity networks, and impacted entire communities. Now, critics of Israel say there's been a deliberate targeting of infrastructure in Gaza. Are you seeing that in the West Bank? Deliberate destruction of roads, businesses, private property, and so on. There's plenty of videos out there.
Yeah, well, it's disproportionate. I mean, that's the way that I would describe it. Certainly, domestic dwellings have been severely damaged. Shops have been damaged. Even our own offices have been impacted.
And this is all happening with the backdrop of Itamar Ben-Gvir arming the very settlers who have been raining terror on Palestinians in the West Bank for a long, long time now. I want to go to the final video here because in it you will witness Ben-Gvir himself handing out weapons to settlers. This happened in a separate initiative. A settler council in the northern West Bank said on October 24th that it has independently issued more than 300 guns to civilian settlers. In a statement on October 10th, Ben-Gvir's political party, Jewish Power, said the minister would distribute 10,000 rifles to civilians, some of them in the West Bank settlements. And there was this effort to buy a ton of assault rifles from gun manufacturers here in the United States, but it needed to be approved by the State Department. And I'm actually shocked that this was the one time where the Biden administration actually blocked the sale of those assault rifles to Israel, because it was clear that they were going to be funneled over to the settlers, and there weren't appropriate safeguards in place to ensure that that wouldn't happen. So they did block the sale of those weapons for now. But I do want to remind you, Biden did go around Congress not once but twice in order to supply Israel with more military weaponry for their assault on Gaza and the Palestinians living there.
Okay, so Ben-Gvir was convicted of aiding terrorists. He's a literal terrorist. And as recently as 2020, in a separate issue, they saw that he had a giant picture of an Israeli settler terrorist who killed 29 innocent Palestinians in his living room. He celebrates terrorists, and he's the national security minister of Israel. Netanyahu has now murdered 20 times the number of civilians Hamas has. 20 times Hamas. Israel is led by a bunch of terrorists. If terrorism means killing civilians on purpose, if you think Israel isn't killing people on purpose, that golly gee, they just have the world's worst military. I mean, they meant to get the terrorists, but golly gee, they accidentally killed nonstop civilians, over 20,000 civilians. They just can't seem to shoot straight. Well, come on, you're so deep in your bias, you can't see straight. Obviously they're killing them on purpose. That's the most obvious thing in the world. The whole world sees it. They see the kids being picked up in body parts from the rubble, and you're pretending, oh, it was an accident again. Golly gee, we hit an apartment building again. It didn't affect the tunnels at all. Murder, murder, murder of innocent civilians. Only terrorists when Palestinians do it. When Israelis do it, oh, they were just trying so hard and they missed again. Come on, you have to be a borderline lunatic to believe that. So now, Ben-Gvir, we showed you recently, flat out said he was in favor of ethnic cleansing and that they should push all the Palestinians into the desert and just take Gaza. Netanyahu has said he will never allow a Palestinian state. So there's no partner for peace here. The Israeli government, unfortunately, literally run by terrorists at this point. So those settlers are some of the worst people on earth. They're religious lunatics. Doesn't matter what the religion is. They think, God told me that I must take this land. And if people are on it, I gotta kill them, I gotta take their land, I gotta do whatever I can. Total religious lunatics. And America is now saying, okay, you guys are in charge. You do whatever you want, kill as many Palestinians as you want. So you saw the numbers Anna gave you. The West Bank has nothing to do with Hamas, run by Palestinian Authority. Since October 7th, they killed 344 Palestinians already, 88 kids. You know, Hamas killed 36 kids on October 7th, and we ripped into them and we condemned them completely, 100%, 36 kids. They killed 80, Israel killed 88 in the West Bank. That has nothing to do with this conflict. 88.
Yep.
So what kind of monsters are they? Don't tell me they're not monsters when they keep killing. And what does Biden do? Biden won't do anything a donor tells him. And guys, this isn't religious. The Saudis, they slap him around, but the Saudis spend endless money in Washington, right? So what does Biden do? Thank you, sir, may I have another? What happened? I thought you were gonna stand up to MBS. No, Mohammed bin Salman spit in Biden's face. And Biden's like, okay, oh, it's raining. As long as there's donor money, I'll do whatever the donors want.
And Biden needs Saudi Arabia to produce oil to keep gas prices low, so high gas prices don't hurt his political career and his bid to get reelected.
Yeah.
So look, the fact of the matter is decisions are made not out of principle, integrity, or what's best to save as many human lives as possible. Decisions are made based on self-enrichment, narcissism, and concern over their future political careers. That's how decisions are made. Okay, when it comes to John Fetterman, he's terrified of AIPAC, so he's gonna bow his head and do exactly what AIPAC would like him to do so they don't spend money to campaign against him. Same thing with Joe Biden. Whether you're talking about the Israel lobby, whether you're talking about AIPAC, the Democratic majority of Israel, or you're talking about his own self-interest in terms of his own political career, he's gonna do what's right for him. And in the meantime, we're gonna be gaslit by all these Biden administration officials trying to get us to believe that they're working tirelessly behind the scenes to get a ceasefire and a two-state solution. They've got a funny way of showing it, because if they were sincere about that, they would hold the Israeli government accountable for the bloodshed that we're experiencing and seeing in the Gaza Strip, and they would stop sending 2,000-pound bombs to Israel. But Biden didn't do that. Biden went around Congress not once but twice to get those 2,000-pound bombs to the Israeli government so they can drop it on civilian infrastructure, kids, families in the Gaza Strip. That's the fact of the matter. That's what's happening.
Yeah, last things. So circular logic of the Israeli supporters is, well, we have to occupy them because they hate us so much. I mean, if we let them govern themselves, I mean, these savages would obviously attack us right away. And so we have to occupy them because they hate us. When were they supposed to fall in love with you? You killed their kids nonstop. And there's like, so how do they ever win? Do they all have to say, we love Israel, we love all Israelis, you murder our kids anytime you like? Is that the only time you would say, okay, then we'll end occupation? I can't believe that people were occupied don't like us. What a twist, I didn't see that coming. Come on, man, there's no end to the absurdities of Israeli propaganda. Just let the Palestinians go. It's not complicated. End the occupation and stop trying to steal their land.
All right, when we come back, we've got other news to get to, including Donald Trump making a few mistakes on the campaign trail that Nikki Haley has seized on. In fact, she's questioning his mental capacity. That and more coming up. Don't miss it.
All right, our members, Roya Massa says, as far as back as I remember, Palestinians got murdered for rocks. Palestinians get bullets, tanks, bombs without any consequences. So guys, let's think about that logic. Well, a Palestinian threw a rock, so we had to kill him. Israel threw a bomb, but you're not allowed to kill him. If you try to fight back against Israel's bombs, you're a goddamn terrorist. If they throw rocks to fight back against the occupation, they're also terrorists. So there's no winning. There's no winning. It's propaganda. It's gaslighting 101, where the Palestinians are always guilty and they're always the oppressors when they're the ones being occupied. It's absurd. I can't take it anymore. Camp Corona Dad says, can we really condemn what Israel's doing to Palestinians when we can't teach our own kids what we did to indigenous people here in America, and how did we justify that? Quote, they were savages. WTF is wrong with us already. No, but you could do both. Can I tell you, that is exactly what the Turkish side says about the Armenian genocide. They say, well, how dare America tell us that it was an Armenian genocide when the Native Americans were genocided by America? My point is, yeah, you could do both. That's not that complicated. Yeah, was there a genocide of Native Americans here? Absolutely. Does that mean that the Armenians didn't suffer genocide? No, it doesn't. Those two things are unconnected. Does that mean that that we should say, oh, it's okay when Israel does a genocide? No, those two things are unconnected.
And we can't go back in time and correct those atrocities, but we could change course on what's happening today in Gaza.
Yeah.
That's the point of bringing it up. That's the point of talking about it. And the reason why we cover the story so often is because, number one, you get a perspective here that you're not gonna get in most other corporate media. But aside from that, it's something that is being done in the name of Americans, right? And I can't stand by that. It disgusts me to know that our government is fully supporting what's happening in the Gaza Strip right now and the West Bank. So
like, should I just give up being fair and consistent? Should I just become like an apologist for the Turkish, right-wing Turkish government?
No, don't do that.
No, like, oh, wait, no, it's my ethnicity. No, you're all racist against Turks. You're all racist Racist, racist, racist against Turks. How dare you criticize that beloved Erdogan and that beloved Turkish government? I mean, that would be insane. That would be ridiculous, right?
It would be insane, definitely.
Ridiculous.
Definitely ridiculous.
But when people do it for Israel, they're like, oh no, of course. You can't even criticize them. No. They're allowed to be 1,000% biased. But if anyone else is biased, oh, no, we can't have that. Jerry Ty 429, I'm with Anna. We're all sick and tired of the constant gaslighting. The government officials act as if we don't have eyes and we don't have access to social media. That's right, because they used to oppress you with their propaganda called mainstream media. The New York Times and CNN would tell you, no, don't believe your lying eyes. But now you got social media and they can't stop it. And they hate it. That's why they're always talking about shut down TikTok, shut down YouTube. They're letting the truth out. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you. And Michelle Restucci, thank you for upgrading your membership. Makes an enormous difference when you guys upgrade. Anyway, we lost our investigative reporting team recently. This industry is totally devastated. So if you can upgrade, please do that. You can do it through the join button as well, or join if you can, because we're, as you can tell, we're truth tellers. So keep us around. Thank you, Anna.
Trump's having a tough go at things, and I think it's worth discussing.
By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley, did you know they destroyed all of the information, all of the evidence, everything, deleted and destroyed all of it, because of lots of things. Like Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers, National Guard, so whatever they want. They turned it down. They don't want to talk about that.
Oof. Donald Trump confused Nancy Pelosi for Nikki Haley, naming his Republican primary opponent 4 separate times as he was trying to attack Nancy Pelosi for her alleged handling of the January 6th riots.
Dementia.
Okay, now that clip is from last Friday during a New Hampshire rally. And Nikki Haley, I guess to her credit, because she's been a little sheepish in attacking Trump, actually used this as an opportunity to criticize Trump's blunder and basically went after his age and possible mental decline. Let's watch.
He claimed that Joe Biden was going to get us into World War II. I'm assuming he meant World War III. He said that he ran against President Obama. He never ran against President Obama. He says that I'm the one that kept security from the Capitol on January 6th. I was nowhere near the Capitol on January 6th. But Margaret, you don't be surprised if you have someone that's 80 in office. Their mental stability is going to continue to decline. That's just human nature. We know that. What I'm saying is, first of all, you're talking about somebody who's only going to be in office 4 years. Secondly, you're talking about someone who continues to, I mean, look, I don't know if he was confused. I don't know what happened, but it should be enough to send us a warning sign.
Meanwhile, Trump keeps bragging about how he's acing dementia tests, including this past Saturday, just one day after mixing up Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi.
A few months ago, I took a cognitive test my doctor gave me. I said, give me a cognitive test just so we can, because you know what the standards were. And I aced it. I also took one when I was in the White House. No, I'll let you know when I go bad. I really think I'll be able to tell you, because someday we go bad. But I've had, and they always say like Haley, she talks about, yeah, we don't need 80-year-old. Well, I don't mind being 80, but I'm 77. That's a big difference.
But he wasn't done yet, because the following day, on Sunday, during an interview with Bret Baier, he bragged about the tests again when asked about Nikki Haley's attacks against him.
She said, are you mentally fit? Is basically what she said. How do you respond to that?
Well, I did a cognitive test recently and I aced it. And when I refer, like for instance, oftentimes I'll say purposely about Obama, and I'd interchange it with Biden because I believe Obama has a lot to do with what's happening and destroying our country, and I'll interchange, and they'll just say, oh, he said, or I'll imitate Biden walking into a wall or not being able to find his way, and the fake news will go out and they'll say, oh, he actually had a hard time when I'm doing an imitation, and everybody understands it. No, I don't think she could pass the test that I passed. I passed much harder tests than she does, and she's just trying to get a little nasty because she came in third place. She wanted to come in second, and she wasn't even that close, actually, to second.
You got to stop bragging about the dementia tests. You have to stop. He did it on Saturday. He did it on Sunday. Jake, I thought we were done with it, but he did it again today. One more video?
Yeah.
Just one more video? Go.
She keeps bringing up your age lately. What do you say about that?
Well, I think I'm a lot sharper than her. I would do this. I would sit down right now and take an aptitude test, and it would be my result against her result, and she's not going to win. She's not going to even come close to winning. In fact, when I heard the word cognitive, you know, I've taken 2 of them now. I took one with Doc Ronnie, who's now a fantastic, White House doctor, and a fantastic congressman from Texas, Admiral, the White House doctor, Ronnie Jackson, and he's now a great congressman from Texas. I took one then, and I took one recently. I think the result was announced, and I aced it twice. I aced it. But I would say that, I've actually called for a cognitive test for anybody running for president, because I actually think that's a good idea. It'd be nice to have an intelligent person be president.
Indeed, it would be nice. Cenk, thoughts?
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts, but I'm going to give the first comment to one of our members. Post-traumatic self disorder said he's got a good theory on why Trump keeps bragging about it. Said clearly the only test Trump's ever passed. Okay, that might be a great reason why he keeps bragging about it, and that's really funny. $100 Blue Apron gift card. Hey, it pays to watch the show live.
It does.
Okay?
It does.
We read member comments. You got a good one. We reward you. Rewards at tyt.com. But we know you're a member. So. Now let me give you my commentary on it. Number one, I think there's a reason why he took that test recently. Because why bother taking it again? Because there must have been concern inside his camp. And so there's no way that Trump, for no reason at all, voluntarily takes that test again unless someone was concerned. Now they probably told him, now don't talk about it. They'll probably raise eyebrows as to why you took the test for no reason again. But he has verbal diarrhea, so he can't help himself. It's like, I aced it, I aced it. I don't believe he aced this one at all. That's why he keeps referring back to, remember Dr. Ronnie Jackson? He said I aced the last one, right? And remember, Ronnie Jackson is known as the candy man at the White House for all the pills that he disperses, apparently, according to the reporting, right? And not a good character witness, to say the least. He's a hot, sweaty mess. Anyways, more importantly, look, MAGA, if Biden had confused Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi, you'd all say he has dementia. You know that. Like if you deny that, everybody knows you're lying, right? But when Trump says it, you're like, no, it doesn't count, doesn't count. He makes all these things where he confuses one person for another 100 times over. And then he has these super weak excuses. Well, I said Obama when I met Biden because I mean Obama. That's it. That's the ticket, right?
So look, there are other examples of Trump screwing up during his speeches in a way that makes you concerned about cognitive decline. So I'm not erasing that. I think that is an issue. However, in this case, it looked really bad that he mistook or kept saying Nikki Haley's name when he meant to say Nancy Pelosi. But is there a possibility that he just has Nikki Haley on his mind? Because Nikki Haley's rising in the polls, Nikki Haley hasn't dropped out of the race.
No, I hear you, but I'm not making any excuses. And it's an uneven battlefield because we admit that Joe Biden has problems.
Totally, yeah.
But they never admit it when it's super obvious on Trump.
I know.
So we make the mistake of being honest and decent people going, look, I think there's 2 dementia patients who are running for president. Who are gonna be likely the 2 candidates. And they're gonna go and get on a debate stage and they're gonna be like, well, I'll tell you, Walter Mondale's doing the wrong thing. Oh yeah? New caucuses. They're not going to know who the hell is who.
But Jake, but there is a difference between Biden and Trump. Like visibly, Biden's struggling, whereas Trump, I don't know how this is even possible, but he just seems energetic. He seems like he's with it. And then he has these crazy moments where he shows the signs of mental decline. And if you're curious what I'm talking about, we have a quick compilation for you. Let's take a look at that.
We start in Iowa, we go to New Hampshire, we come down here. You know, the beauty was when I came here, everyone thought Bush was going to win. And then they took a poll and they found out Trump was up by about 50 points. Everyone said, what's going on right here? They thought Bush, because Bush supposedly was a military person. Great. You know what he was a military? He got us into the Middle East. How did that work out, right? But they all thought that Bush might win, Jeb. We have a man who is totally corrupt and the worst president in the history of our country, who is cognitively impaired, in no condition to lead, and is now in charge of dealing with Russia and possible nuclear war. Just think of it. We would be in World War II. Their leading political opponent, they're leading by a lot, including Obama. I'll tell you what, you take a look at Obama and take a look at some of the things that he's done. This is the same thing. The country is very divided. And we did with Obama. We won an election that everyone said couldn't be won.
So, you know, he meant to say World War III, he said World War II, he mistook Jeb Bush for George W. Bush. There was also the moment where he wanted to say origins, but kept saying oranges over and over again.
I think that was just his dentures. Fairest show in America.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sure. The origins and oranges one, but everything else, I mean, look, he's talking about how George Bush got us into Iraq and he was running against Jeb Bush. He says Jeb at the end, but guys, that's a giant mistake. That's not like, hey, I said Jeb and I meant George or vice versa. He described how he was running against Jeb Bush and then he described George Bush's career. It's two different people. If Biden had done that, every MAGA person would say full-blown dementia.
Right.
Now, Trump has another problem, which is Biden, I'm not a big fan of Biden, as you might be able to tell. You know, he's lucky to be at 100 IQ, which is average, right? But when he's got mental decline, maybe he drops to 80. Trump started at 40, he dropped to 20. I mean, there isn't much left, right? And last thing is, yeah, this is just a side comment that's just funny. If you notice on the Nikki Haley, Nancy Pelosi flub, he was originally complaining that they were not giving him credit for how large the crowd was on January 6th.
I know, he's so obsessed with size.
I mean, that's also telling in a different way. But really, if you have to brag that your like your treasonous rioters were really large crowd, you might be going in the wrong direction. Unless, of course, you're a Republican, in which case they'll celebrate you.
Yeah, look, the final thing I'll say about this is, I think the reason why, according to polling, more Americans are concerned with Biden's age as opposed to Trump's age is they do visibly look different as they're in the public giving speeches. The energy levels are different. Trump is usually fired up, amped up, super animated, whereas Biden just visibly looks confused, has low energy, is like squinting into the camera as he's giving speeches. And so as a result of that, a combined 74% of registered voters say they have major concerns, 59%, or moderate concerns, 15%, that Biden at age 80 doesn't have the necessary mental and physical health to be president for a second term. And 47% have either major concerns, 34% moderate concerns, 13% about Trump at the age of 77, not having the necessary mental and physical health to be president for a second term.
That's also a giant number. That's 81% combined. So that's about the same for Biden and Trump. And thank you, Republican and Democratic parties, for giving us two guys who are probably both suffering dementia right now. And 80% of the country doesn't want either, but okay.
Yeah.
This is our democracy.
You know what, let's give you some good news when we come back for the last segment of the show. See you then.
All right, some programming notes tonight. I'm covering the California Senate debate between Katie Porter, Barbara Lee, and Adam Schiff. I'm actually genuinely curious, and I'm curious as a California voter who I'm going to vote for. I haven't made up my mind yet. Definitely not Adam Schiff, but I am curious between the other two. So check out my coverage of that after that is over right here. And tomorrow, giant coverage of the New Hampshire primary. Anna, John, Francesca, Jordan, Wozni, Ravana, Michael Schur from New Hampshire. So it's right after the main show tomorrow. Make sure you're checking that out. And we are now on Apple Podcasting. Check out apple.co/TYT. John's checking it out. It's right there. All right, let's go to YouTube Super Chat because I haven't gotten there all day today. Eric Sutter says, I got to be honest, I think Willis is being set up here. I don't agree. So that's referring to the Fonnie Willis story from earlier today. YTP Renewed say, imagine being so spiteful to your ex-spouse that you'll go public with something that could undermine a criminal case against Trump. Well, I hear you on that, and I don't know that they should have done that, but at the same time, she's also potentially, possibly abusing the taxpayers of Atlanta, and that's a problem, okay? So Brad David says, do you think DeSantis ran as bad a campaign as Bloomberg did in 2020? That's a good contest. I don't know who wins that, but I think Bloomberg's campaign was more arrogant. He didn't even bother preparing for the debates and got his ass handed to him and wasted about $500 million. But DeSantis had a better chance of winning, so you could argue that he made the bigger mistake. Stop Dragging My Heart Around on YouTube members says about Trump, he's 7 fries short of a Happy Meal. I don't know why I like that so much, but I do. The Great Mandini writes in, I don't agree with Bengley, but I appreciate the fact that he can come on and try to defend his views. He gets obliterated by Cenk on everything, but they end their discussion as friends. Well, I appreciate you taking my side on the policy issue, but more than that, I appreciate you not taking it personally when Ben has disagreeing views, and we definitely ended as friends. But yeah, you need to hear all sides. Doesn't mean you have to agree with all sides. That applies in both directions. Low Class News says, glad TYT is on a plethora of platforms. The world has to hear this crap. I come for education. I would pretend to understand political science. Thank you. You know, we try to share things in an unbiased way and have a lot of information for you guys as opposed to a lot of shows that have a lot of opinion and not much information. And I appreciate that you noticed that. Bubba Franks, i.e. the Sword Dragon, writes in, Cenk has super sexy, manly man hair today. Can I get Blue Apron? No, you can't, but I appreciate the fake compliment. Twitch Micro says, why am I paying taxes when it goes straight to Israel to ethnically cleanse? All right, back on TYT. Cenk, Anna, and American hero Louis Malone, who gifted 20 Young Turks memberships. So we appreciate you so much. I can't help but respond to this one Twitch commenter. Skittlebutt Dragon Rasp wrote in, weird they aren't crying about white prosecutors in reference to Fonnie Willis. But there are no white prosecutors that are being charged with improprieties like Fonnie Willis is at this moment in Atlanta. Are there in other places? Yes. Do they get prosecuted? Yes. You know, there was a prosecutor named Elliot Spitzer who they went after, even though he was white, and they went after him for illegitimate reasons. So, I mean, guys, look, don't get so stuck in your own bubble that you can't see straight. Wrong is wrong, no matter which side it comes from. All right, Anna.
All right, let's end with some good news because rideshare workers in New York have won a pretty big settlement. You should know about it. Rideshare workers in the state of New York have won a whopping $328 million settlement after an investigation found that Uber and Lyft were engaging in wage theft. Now, through an investigation launched by Attorney General Letitia James, the state found that from around 2014 to 2017, Uber and Lyft were systematically taking money from their employees and lying to them about it. Now, here's how their scheme worked, according to ABC News. From 2014 to 2017, Uber deducted sales taxes and black car fund fees from drivers' payments when those taxes and fees should have been paid by passengers, the Attorney General's office said. So the black car fund is like an injury compensation fund for rideshare and taxi drivers in the state of New York. And that money, again, was supposed to come from the passengers' fees, but instead Uber and Lyft decided to take that money from the driver's pay. In addition, Lyft used a similar method to shortchange drivers from 2015 to 2017, deducting an 11.4% administrative charge from drivers' payments in New York equal to the amount of sales tax and black car fund fees that should have been paid by riders. So not only were they doing this with the black car fund fee, they were also doing it when it came to sales taxes, the very sales taxes that the customers are supposed to pay, not the drivers, not the workers. There were other violations as well. Uber misrepresented the deductions made to drivers' pay in their terms of service, telling drivers that Uber would only deduct its commission from the driver's fare and that drivers were entitled to charge the passenger for any tolls, taxes, or fees incurred, though no method to do this was ever provided via the Uber driver app. And finally, Uber and Lyft also failed to provide drivers with paid sick leave available to employees under New York City and New York State law. So I'm happy to share that Letitia James decided to go after this, investigated this, her office did, and they found that wage theft did in fact take place. They decided to go after these rideshare companies and they did secure a $328 million settlement as a result. I love to hear these types of news stories or read these types of news stories because it's one of the rare instances where you see the government working on behalf of ordinary people. So big ups to Letitia James for taking on this case.
Big ups. Okay, so
get it together.
All right. Look, some people on the left, let's keep it real, hate Uber and Lyft, and I get why. They say, oh, they're abusing their workers because it's part-time and they should have benefits, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem is when you go to try to fix that, you sometimes do more damage than good. I've talked to tons of Uber drivers about this. They're not unanimous at all, but a huge percentage of them say, no, just let me do the thing that I want to do. It's so important to my income. Don't regulate it away, right? On the other hand, the Republicans say, no regulation, free market should rule. So then are they allowed to just steal from their workers? Because that's exactly what they were doing.
Well, with no oversight and no regulation, yeah, they would be able to do that.
Yeah. So here's a reasonable answer. Why don't we do normal regulation, reasonable regulation, where we say, hey, you know what? Yeah, you could have a part-time job with Uber and Lyft, but you're not allowed to steal from the drivers, right? Because this is literal theft. And so I love that they did this. Thank you. The government working for you
for
in
the
New
people.
York. Yes.
Yeah.
And so look, I wrote about this in my book. I call it democratic capitalism. You cannot have capitalism without democracy checking it, because otherwise it just turns into corporatism. And
crony capitalism.
Yeah, or crony capitalism. Both mean the same exact thing, corporatism and crony capitalism, where they capture the government and then they go, oh, we do not want any regulation, which means I don't want any cops checking in on what I'm doing because I was in the middle of a robbery. So thank you to, in that case, the government that acted as cops to stop this robbery.
Absolutely. Now I want to share the stories of a few rideshare workers. One person, Nia Clark from New York, says, Uber owes me $25,000. I'm sorry, Nia Clark is the New York Times or the New York State of Politics writer. Uber owes me $25,000, said Malang Gassama. Lyft owes me about $3,000, kind of giving you a sense of how much this financially impacted the rideshare workers. Despite working 60 hours a week, Lamin Jada, a Gambia native, said he only made about $500 a week. He's expecting about $10,000 from the settlement. Quote, I'm going to help my family, Jada said, and I was going to school, but I couldn't afford to pay it, so I'll go back to school again. So this is gonna have real life positive benefits for these workers' lives, and I love to see that. And thankfully, the settlement won even more good news for these rideshare drivers because Uber and Lyft agreed to an earnings floor guaranteeing drivers across the state are paid a minimum rate. Uber and Lyft drivers will now also receive guaranteed paid sick leave. And in regard to the settlement, when it was first announced, by the way, in November of last year, but under that settlement, Uber and Lyft will be paying $290 million and $38 million to their drivers respectively, and more than 100,000 employees will now be eligible to receive money from that settlement.
So I just want to ask Republicans again, you really think there should be no regulation? Like, so, I mean, look at the giant numbers there. One guy's gonna get $10,000, they had stolen $10,000 from him, from his hard work.
Right.
The other lady or person, $28,000. Imagine you work your ass off and your employer steals $28,000 from you. You don't think they should be regulated? Of course you need regulations. That's so obvious. It's so frustrating that for our entire lives, we've lived with a media and politics that gaslights us so much. And like this idea of like, oh, deregulation is always great. Doesn't it depend? Of course it depends. And so again, thrilled that we had victory here. And last thing, guys, when a company didn't do anything wrong, they usually fight it because they have an army of lawyers, right? And if they settle for a small number for a company that size, under $1 million, under $250,000, under $100,000, that means they probably didn't do it, but they're just getting rid of the lawsuit. When they settle for $38 million, that means they did it, okay? And if the company itself basically admits they did it and is paying people back, maybe we need regulation of those companies because they'd steal all day, every day if we let them.
All right, there's a breaking Marjorie Greene story where she thinks that Kim Jong-un's reign ended because of Donald Trump. We got to talk about that in the bonus episode. So that's for our members, tyt.com/join to become a member. We've got other fun stories as well, including studies into whether marijuana makes us more or less empathetic. You want to know the results, tyt.com/join to become a member, and we'll see you there.